Okay, settle in. Pour yourself something warm. This isn't easy to share. Feels a bit like dissecting my own failures under a harsh spotlight. But maybe my story can be a cautionary tale for someone else navigating the long, sometimes complicated, path of marriage. We live in one of those neighborhoods just outside Chicago where everything looks perfect. Pristine lawns, white picket fences, literally, some of them. Kids riding bikes down streets named after trees. It's the suburban dream, right? Stability neatly packaged. My husband Ryan and I bought our cozy colonial here 5 years ago. To anyone peeking through the windows, we probably looked like the cover of a retirement planning brochure. 2 decent cars in the driveway, IKEA furniture nicely arranged, Friday night pizza and a movie ritual firmly established. But perfection, as they say, is often just a carefully curated facade. Ryan is a good man. Steady, kind, incredibly patient, sometimes to the point where it drove me a little crazy. He's the quieter one in our duo. I'm the talker, the organizer, the one who always felt like she was juggling 60 things while he seemed to manage his load with infuriating calm. He does things, don't get me wrong. He's meticulous with finances, fixes anything that drips or squeaks, handles all the yard work, but his contributions always felt less visible, less frantic than mine. And if I'm being completely honest, a part of me started to resent that quiet efficiency, mistaking it, perhaps, for simply less effort. It all came to a head, or maybe just spectacularly combusted, at Sarah's dinner party. She calls them just because gatherings, which really means she wants an excuse to open good wine and catch up on neighborhood gossip. She lives 2 blocks away, so Ryan and I walked over on a crisp Saturday evening. The house was buzzing with familiar faces. Anna, whose sarcasm could curdle milk. Mark, ever ready to discuss his latest DIY triumph. A few others whose names float just beyond my grasp. Ryan brought a 6-pack of some fancy craft beer. I contributed a bottle of Chardonnay. We mingled, chatted about work, upcoming vacations, the usual suburban symphony. Eventually, as it often does when couples gather around a cheese platter, the conversation drifted to the division of household labor. Anna leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "So, Emily," she said, swirling her Chardonnay, "how do you keep everything running so smoothly? Your place always looks immaculate. You must be Superwoman." I laughed, basking in the compliment, maybe deflecting a little from the chaos that often brewed behind our own closed doors. "Oh, please," I waved a hand dismissively. If I were really Superwoman, I'd have figured out how to make Ryan understand the vacuum cleaner isn't just a decorative object. A ripple of knowing laughter went around the group. Even Ryan chuckled, though looking back, it felt thin. Forced. Someone else piped up, "Does he even know where you keep it, Ryan?" Before he could formulate a response, I jumped back in, feeling the momentum, playing to the crowd. "Only because he occasionally needs to move it to find the remote control batteries. His main household contribution seems to be ensuring we don't miss any episodes of Ted Lasso." The laughter was louder this time. I felt a surge of something. Cleverness? Camaraderie? Like I'd just nailed the punchline to the shared joke of modern marriage dynamics. But then I caught Ryan's eye. The smile was still there, fixed, polite. But his eyes, they were distant, opaque, like looking at a calm lake surface right before a storm hits. A tiny, almost imperceptible warning signal flared in my chest, but I quickly extinguished it. "It's just banter," I told myself. "Harmless. Everyone does this." Across the room, Sarah's teenage daughter, Chloe, was filming the laughing group with her phone, probably for some silly social media post. It barely registered. We walked home later under a sky full of stars. The usual comfortable silence felt charged, heavy. Inside, Ryan didn't suggest our usual nightcap or offer commentary on the party. Just a quiet, "Good night, Em," before heading upstairs alone. I stayed downstairs, poured another glass of wine I didn't need, telling myself I was reading too much into it. But the next morning, the shift was undeniable. Ryan always makes the first pot of coffee. It's his ritual. I came downstairs expecting the familiar aroma and clink of mugs. Instead, I found him sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through his phone, a half-finished cup of coffee beside him. "Morning," I said, trying for cheerful. He nodded, eyes still glued to the screen. "Morning." Flat. Clipped. No gentle teasing about how long it took me to surface. No questions about the day ahead. Just silence. A cold, unfamiliar silence. The following days unfolded with this new, strained politeness. He was physically present but emotionally miles away. One-word answers. Avoided eye contact. Spent hours in his home office with the door closed. My attempts at humor, even gentle ones, were met with a blank stare or a noncommittal shrug. The easy rhythm of our life was gone, replaced by this awkward, painful stiffness. Then, about a week after the party, my phone lit up with notifications. A text from my sister. "Emily, is this you? This video is everywhere." Below it, a TikTok link. My stomach turned to ice. I clicked, and there I was, laughing at Sarah's party, wine glass in hand, delivering my lines about the vacuum and the remote batteries. The video wasn't great quality, shaky phone footage, but the audio was clear, and the camera briefly caught Ryan's face just as the light drained from his eyes. The caption read, "My mom's friend thinks trashing her husband is comedy gold. Watch his reaction, though. Star dinner party fail. Marriage humor. Maybe not. Toxic?" It had gone viral, at least locally. Hundreds of thousands of views. And the comments? Dear God, the comments. Wow, zero respect. His poor face, she has no clue. This isn't funny, it's just mean. Hope he leaves her? My ex used to joke like this. Keyword, ex. She's performing for her friends at his expense. Major red flag. Nausea rose in my throat. Humiliation warred with a dawning horror. Seeing myself through their unfiltered gaze, hearing my words echo in the harsh vacuum of the internet. I sounded callous, dismissive, cruel. The harmless banter suddenly felt toxic. Ryan never brought up the video. He didn't have to. The silence itself started doing all the talking, thick, oppressive, settling into the walls of our home like a second layer of insulation. It wasn't just quiet, it was intentional quiet, the kind you could trip over. He started working later. I'd come home to empty kitchen counters and a cold stove. I stopped hearing the clink of silverware at dinner. If he ate at all, he ate without me. Plates rinsed, crumbs wiped, no evidence left behind except a faint citrus cleaner scent and the hum of his computer behind a closed door. At first, I tiptoed around it. I brought him tea one night, the good kind he liked, steeped just right, and knocked softly on the door to his home office. No answer. I knocked again. Finally, the door cracked open a few inches. He didn't look angry, just exhausted. "Hey," I offered gently. "Just thought you could use a break." He glanced at the mug in my hand. "Thanks," he said, voice even. Then, without stepping aside or inviting me in, he took it and closed the door. That was the moment I realized I was officially on the other side of something. I just didn't know what yet. By the third day, I couldn't take the emotional claustrophobia anymore. I found him downstairs in the basement, tinkering with a drawer from the hallway table that had a squeaky track. That table had squeaked for 3 years. Now suddenly, it was a project. I stood at the top of the stairs for a minute before going down. "Ryan?" No response. Just the soft metal click of a screwdriver turning. "Ryan, can we please talk?" He didn't look up. "Is the table bothering you now too?" My chest tightened. "No, it's not about the table." He kept working, calm, deliberate. The drawer slid in, then back out. He adjusted the track. "Ryan," I tried again, more insistent this time. I'm so incredibly sorry. About that video. About what I said. It was a stupid joke and I... He straightened slowly, wiped his hands on a cloth and looked over at me. Not angry. Just blank. It doesn't matter, Emily. Yes, it does, I said, my voice catching. It was mean. Thoughtless. I wasn't thinking about how it would make you feel. That's the thing, he interrupted. You weren't. His voice wasn't raised, but it landed with more force than if he'd shouted. He turned back to the drawer. Click. Slide. Click. His focus was surgical. I stepped closer. Ryan, I didn't mean for it to come out like that. It wasn't personal. He cut me off again, softly this time. The video doesn't matter. I blinked, stunned. What? He finally turned, met my eyes. There was no anger in them, but no warmth either. The video just showed everyone else what I was already starting to realize. And then he went right back to the drawer, like he hadn't just pulled the rug out from under my entire world. What does that mean? I asked, barely whispering. He didn't answer. I stood there waiting for him to elaborate, begging him to say something that would explain, unpack, fix it. But he just kept working like I wasn't even there. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed while he brushed his teeth in the guest bathroom, his new routine. When he passed by our bedroom door, he didn't even glance in. I wanted to scream, shake him, apologize louder, better, clearer. But there was no entry point. He was building something, not out of wood and screws, but out of detachment and disappointment. An invisible fortress, and I was locked firmly outside. He sat at the kitchen table, elbows resting on a folder of receipts he wasn't even looking at. The silence between us had shape now. It filled the room, pressed against the walls. I stood by the sink, gripping the counter like it could steady the ache in my chest. Ryan, please, just talk to me. Nothing. Just the quiet shuffle of a paper moving. He didn't even look up. I get it, I tried again, softer. I made you the joke. I made you the punchline and I didn't even see it happening. He finally glanced up, not angry, just tired. You didn't want to see it. That stopped me cold. You always made me feel like I was less, he added, like everything I did was invisible, until it was something to mock. I blinked fast, throat burning. That's not true. He exhaled slowly. It doesn't matter if you believe it. It's how it felt. And there it was. Not rage. Not some big confrontation. Just quiet truth, dropped like a stone in water. And all I could do was watch the ripples. Because sometimes the scariest thing isn't yelling. It's when someone finally stops trying to be heard. The next morning, I left him a note on the fridge. Let's talk tonight. Please. I miss you. When I got home, the note was gone. But so was he. The basement lights were off. No shoes by the door. His laptop wasn't on the charger. I waited, paced, reheated dinner, and waited more. Around 10 p.m., the front door opened. He came in quietly, keys in hand, already halfway up the stairs before I could react. Ryan, can we talk now? He paused, hand on the banister. I'm really tired. That's fair. But we can't just not talk about this. He turned his head just slightly. I could barely see his profile in the dim hallway light. I've been talking, Emily. You just didn't notice. The air sucked out of my lungs. He disappeared into the guest room without another word. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying the look on his face in the video, that brief flicker, the way his eyes dropped just before he smiled. I'd watched that clip more than I care to admit. Not out of vanity, out of guilt, obsession. Did I do that? Was that the exact moment I broke him? I started remembering other moments too, little ones I'd buried under convenience. The time I corrected his story at a dinner party because he mixed up the year. The time I joked to my sister that his idea of helping was watching YouTube tutorials next to me while I scrubbed the bathtub. The eye rolls. The sighs. The silences I never noticed because they weren't loud enough to disturb my own noise. How many moments like that had he quietly absorbed? The scariest part wasn't that he hadn't forgiven me. It was that maybe, just maybe, he'd stopped hoping I'd ever see what I was doing. The online storm eventually subsided, but the atmosphere in our home remained glacial. One dreary afternoon, trying to distract myself from the gnawing anxiety, I stumbled upon a YouTube channel. It was hosted by a woman named Linda Crane, probably in her late 60s, with kind eyes and a calm demeanor. Her channel focused on relationships, resilience, navigating life after the nest empties. A video titled, "Why Mocking Our Husbands Isn't Harmless," after 50 caught my eye. With a sense of morbid curiosity, I clicked play. Linda spoke warmly about her late husband, about the partnership they built over decades, the importance of mutual respect, especially as couples age. Then her expression grew serious. "Sometimes," she said gently, "we fall into patterns. We use humor as a shield, or maybe as a subtle weapon. A clip has been circulating recently." My blood ran cold. She played it, my clip, me laughing, Ryan's pained expression. Linda didn't condemn me outright. That's what made her words land like tiny, precise daggers. "This wife," she continued thoughtfully, "might believe she's just engaging in harmless banter. Perhaps she feels unseen in her own efforts and uses humor to level the playing field. But I want us to consider the receiving end. When we consistently minimize our partner's contributions, especially publicly, even in jest, what message are we sending? Are we acknowledging their efforts, even if they differ from our own? Are we fostering an environment where they feel valued, appreciated, seen? Or are we subtly reinforcing societal messages that a man's worth is only measured in certain ways, eroding his confidence one joke at a time?" Tears prickled my eyes. Linda's compassionate dissection cut far deeper than the anonymous online vitriol. She wasn't just talking about a viral clip. She was talking about patterns, about the slow, insidious damage of casual disrespect. She was holding up a mirror, and I hated the reflection, the carelessness, the lack of empathy, the focus on my narrative over our reality. Just as I was grappling with Linda's words, the weekly local newspaper arrived. Flipping through it numbly, a headline caught my eye. "Local teen wins regional acclaim for essay on modern relationships." The winner was Zach Collins, the quiet, studious 16-year-old who lives next door. His essay title? "The Unspoken Injury: Microaggressions in Marriage." My hands started to shake as I read the accompanying excerpt. Zach wrote with startling insight about the power dynamics observed in adult relationships, about how seemingly innocuous comments can carry the weight of persistent dismissal, and how sarcasm used repeatedly can become a form of quiet contempt. He described overhearing conversations through thin suburban walls, conversations characterized not by shouting but by a heavy, weary silence and a palpable sense of one partner's emotional retreat. He wrote about observing a neighbor, he didn't use names, but I knew, who seemed to carry a newfound sadness in his shoulders. A teenager, our neighbor, heard us, saw us, understood the toxic dynamic better than I had myself. Our private disintegration wasn't private at all. It was material for a prize-winning essay. The shame was suffocating. It wasn't just about the joke anymore. Linda and Zach had exposed it as a symptom of a deeper sickness, one I had nurtured through years of neglect and casual cruelty. After the essay appeared, Ryan retreated completely. He barely spoke. He took his meals in his office. He started going for long drives on weekends, disappearing for hours without explanation. The guest room became his permanent bedroom. My apologies, my attempts to talk, to acknowledge the patterns, were met with a wall of impenetrable silence. He wasn't angry anymore. He seemed hollowed out, resigned. I started spiraling, not dramatically, not all at once. It was more like being caught in a slow undertow. memories dragging me under one by one. The dishwasher. God, the dishwasher. He'd offered to help that night, I remember. We just hosted game night and everyone had cleared out. I was tired, buzzing from 2 glasses of red wine and the residual stress of making sure everything had gone smoothly. He walked into the kitchen, picked up a plate, and started stacking things in, trying to match whatever system he thought I had. I didn't even look up from wiping the counters. "Babe," I said, laughing but not really. "That's not how you do it. Do you want to rerun the cycle 3 times or just hand wash everything now?" He paused. Then he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Right. Sorry. I'll just rinse them first." That smile haunted me now. Not because it was fake, but because it was familiar, the same one he wore at Sarah's party. The one that said, "I'm not okay, but I've learned not to show it." Then there was the time he tried to surprise me with weekend plans. A hiking trail, lunch reservations, a small town he thought I'd love. I canceled it. Said I had too much going on. But the truth, I didn't like not being the one in control. I joked about it to my friends later, said, "Ryan's idea of spontaneity is dragging me through a forest with granola bars." They'd laughed. He never brought it up again. And then the countless small sighs, the eye rolls, the offhand jabs. The way I expected him to read my mind, and when he didn't, when he asked if I was okay or if I needed anything, I'd say, "I'm fine," like a door slamming shut. But now I saw it. All of it. Not as quirky couple dynamics, not as harmless banter, but as erosion. Erosion of confidence, of safety, of love that had tried quietly and patiently to reach me again and again, and been met with sighs and sarcasm. I sat on the edge of our bed that night, staring at the half-empty closet. His side looked too neat, like it had been edited. A few hangers gone, drawer slightly ajar, not enough to scream, "I'm leaving," but enough to whisper, "I've already started." And maybe he had. Maybe I didn't even notice the first time he pulled back, because I was too busy being clever, too busy performing for everyone else while the one person who mattered was shrinking further and further away. How do you come back from that? How do you say, "I see it now," when the person who needed you to see it has already stopped hoping that you will? Then, he stopped coming home some nights. First, it was an excuse about crashing at his brother Mark's after working late. Then, just silence. Texts went unanswered. Calls went straight to voicemail. Panic, cold and sharp, began to consume me. Where was he? Was he okay? Was he gone for good? One night, after 3 days of complete silence from him, my phone rang close to midnight. An unfamiliar number. My heart leaped into my throat, a wild mix of hope and terror. "Is this Emily Peterson?" A calm, professional voice, female. "Yes," I managed, my voice thin. "This is Green Valley Hospital. Your husband, Ryan Peterson, is here." The world seemed to tilt sideways. "Oh my God. Is he... What happened?" "He presented at the emergency department this evening with chest pains and difficulty breathing. The doctor has evaluated him. He's stable." Chest pains. The words hung in the air. Did he have a heart attack?" I whispered, sinking onto a kitchen chair, my legs suddenly weak. No, the tests were negative for a cardiac event. The assessment is that it's likely stress-induced, severe anxiety presenting with physical symptoms. We're admitting him overnight for observation." She hesitated. "Mrs. Peterson, he drove himself here. He initially declined to provide an emergency contact, but we found your information in his insurance wallet. He drove himself, alone, believing he might be dying, and he didn't want them to call me. The implications of that crashed over me, stealing my breath. The drive to the hospital was a frantic blur fueled by adrenaline and a sickening wave of self-loathing. The harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital corridor felt like an accusation, I found his room number, pushed the door open hesitantly. He was lying in the bed, looking pale and exhausted, monitors beeping softly beside him. He seemed smaller somehow, diminished. His eyes flickered open as I approached, my footsteps silent on the linoleum floor. They held no anger, no blame, just a deep, fathomless weariness that seemed to settle in my own bones. "Ryan," I choked out, tears blurring my vision. "Oh, honey, why didn't you call me? I was so worried. I would have been here in minutes." He looked away, staring at the acoustic tile ceiling for what felt like an eternity. The rhythmic beep of the monitor was the only sound. Finally, he turned his head slowly, his gaze meeting mine, flat and direct. "I didn't want to worry you," he said, his voice raspy, barely audible. He swallowed, then delivered the final blow with devastating quietness. "And besides, I think my body decided I needed someone who actually cared." That was it. The dam inside me broke. A raw, ugly sob tore from my throat. I collapsed into the hard plastic visitor's chair, burying my face in my hands, the cumulative weight of my jokes, my blindness, my relentless dismissal of his worth, crashing down and shattering the last vestiges of my denial. He just lay there, watching me cry. The silence in that sterile room a stark, terrifying mirror of the emotional desert I had created between us. He came home the next day. Physically, at least. We exist in the same space, ghosts haunting the comfortable house we built together. We've started counseling, separately for now, his choice. We talk about practicalities, scheduling furnace maintenance, coordinating who picks up groceries. The guest room door remains firmly closed most nights. There's no neat conclusion to this story. No triumphant reconciliation. Yet. Maybe never. The damage feels profound, perhaps irreparable. Linda Crane's gentle questions about respect echo constantly. Zach's essay sits on my desk, a tangible reminder of how clearly my failures were seen by others. And Ryan's words in that hospital room, they are etched onto my soul. I needed someone who actually cared. Can we find a way back from this? More importantly, can I fundamentally change? Can I unlearn the ingrained habits of sarcasm and dismissal? Can I become a partner who truly sees and values the quiet, steady goodness of the man I married, the man I treated so carelessly for so long? I don't know. The path forward feels shrouded in fog. But acknowledging the depth of my failure, seeing the pain I caused, not just emotionally but physically, feels like a start, a terrifying, humbling start. It's not about fixing us right now. It's about fixing me. It's about earning the right to even ask for his forgiveness, understanding fully that it might never come. The work ahead feels monumental, and the fear that I recognize the value of what I had only when I'd already broken it. That fear is my constant companion now. But for the first time, I'm willing to face it. I have to be. It's about earning the right to even ask for his forgiveness, understanding fully that it might never come. The work ahead feels monumental, and the fear that I recognized the value of what I had only when I'd already broken it. That fear is my constant companion now. But for the first time, I'm willing to face it. I have to be.